I've been a NASCAR fan for most of my life. I really wasn't too hardcore into the sport until a few years ago, but I've watched a good bit of races in my few years around. What I didn't watch on TV I made up for playing the games. The first one I ever had being Thunder 2004 on PlayStation 1. Ever since getting that, I remained updated, purchasing every yearly release up to 2009 when EA stopped putting them out. When 2010's game was never released, I felt betrayed, as if NASCAR stopped caring about me. Okay, that's a lie. 2009 was actually the year I started watching every race that I could. I did feel an integral part of the season was missing though without a new game. I have to wait all the way until 2011 to get a new NASCAR game where the reins were picked up by you Technics, and my expectations were through the roof. And the game we all got was crap. The driving was awkward, career mode had nothing interesting to it, there were no features out of career, and quick race modes, and online was barren of any players. My hopes of a good NASCAR game were dashed just like that, and when I heard the same developers were working on the next game, I gave up hope. It was the first year I didn't get the newest NASCAR game in its release year. This game, Inside Line, and 2013 are nearly identical with just a couple minuscule differences, so I'm just going to review them both as one. So, putting all of my bias aside, let's get to the NASCAR The Game 2013 video review. For the record, the only significant difference between Inside Line and 2013 that I have personally found is that Inside Line plays with the 2012 car bodies and 2013 plays with the 2013 car bodies. Inside Line does have the 2013 car bodies when the April 2nd update is installed, but unlike the game 2011, the bodies are not automatically unlocked and playable the moment you update. No sir, you have to purchase them as DLC.
What?
That's right, a patch that brings in on-disc DLC. Nice move there. What else can you expect from a dev like Activision? Apart from that little nitpick, there are few changes from 2011 to Inside Line. There is a new scenario mode, which is basically lightning challenges from the EA NASCAR games, and then there's head-to-head mode, where you perform a time trial. Whoop-de-doo. There are 6 categories that I grade games on: gameplay, graphics, sound, soundtrack, menus, and replayability. In this review, I will analyze all 6 of these aspects to see exactly how well made NASCAR The Game Inside Line / 2013 really is. If you've seen my NASCAR The Game 2013 first time play reactions, you'd know that I drive with a keyboard on PC, meaning I suck. However, I'm grading solely on my experiences on the PlayStation 3 version for gameplay. PC players probably will have a totally different experience than mine. The gameplay is exactly what you would expect from a game titled NASCAR The Game. You race around and around the selected racetrack against a select number of opponents over a selected number of laps. There's only one problem. Everything was executed completely wrong. Apparently, your Technics collected actual telemetry data from NASCAR races so the AI could be programmed to suit a certain driver's style, as if you were really racing against that driver on the racetrack. Well, I played the game, and I lost it. I lost all hope for good racing games. These drivers are complete pushovers. There is absolutely no reason for such simplicity. Even on the highest difficulty, you cannot be beat. You must have been collecting some crappy data if this is how bad these drivers run. If this is how easy it is to beat the best of the best, then sign me up for a Sprint Cup ride, because I'm going for a perfect 36 for 36 season. But don't worry, the game makes up for it. You Technics discovered that their AI were such pushovers right before the game was released, so they took the games, tweaked a couple of tracks, and then sent it out. Hey, that's the best theory I could come up with, because some tracks are absolutely impossible to drive on. Take Charlotte, for example. The only way that I've found to get around this damn track is by driving as slow as a grandma on her way to the chiropractor. At the fastest speed I could run without spinning my car was about 2/5 what everyone else was. So instead of tweaking your AI to make them a little more challenging, they just tweaked some of the racetracks instead, because that would mess up that precious telemetry data.
That's sick.
Not only that, but at restrictor plate tracks, Talladega and Daytona, there is no stopping you. Really, these tracks are complete jokes. You can't lose here. You know why? Because there are no air physics, and AI cannot utilize draft. What do I mean by air physics? It's when drivers in a draft pull out of the draft and hit a wall of air they couldn't feel in a draft because the driver in front of them was blocking it. In this game, you hit no wall of air and can pull away from the field at these tracks. That's right, I said pull away at Talladega. And this game is supposed to be priding in its realism. But we're just getting started on the gameplay problems. If you can survive the suffering of this game for extended periods of time, odds are you're going to need to make pit stops to prolong the suffering even more. And by God, pitting is terrible. It doesn't matter what you do getting into the pits, tilting your head the correct way in the car, it doesn't matter. Your pit crew is slow as molasses. You could come into the pit on a caution flag with the competitors right next to you the entire way through, and you'll still lose 5 spots each stop.
Change my tires.
I don't know what for, Nicole. It's over.
Change my tires.
And one more thing, pit road is completely automated. There's no choice for us to do it ourselves. Come on, you technics, at least give us one thing we want. Remember how I said the AI are complete pushovers? Well, not quite as much as I'd really want them to be. I swear that when I bump into other drivers, I'm hitting into the concrete wall around the track, because those guys cannot be moved. They are brick walls, and no matter what you do, they will screw you over. They climb over Mount Everest, fight the forces of darkness unarmed, and walk into the ghetto spitting every racially offensive slur they could come up with just to put you in the wall. Most drivers will cut you off coming out of the corners, but that isn't the worst of it. Half the time you'll be way out ahead of them coming out of the turn, and they'll just follow their line right into your quarter panel, taking you out and likely half the field along with you. But it isn't always their fault. There'll be that one time every couple of years you come out of a corner poorly and into their quarter panel. You know what happens then? You still spin out! It's unbelievable that in this game you can drive right into the most unstable part of the vehicle with your most stable part of your vehicle, and you are still the one that finds himself in reverse. Thank God for Instant Rewind. No, seriously, whether you believe in it or not, you should really be thanking God for this one. With Instant Rewind, you can literally turn back time for another chance at a corner you may have taken badly or avoid someone else's corner you took the blunt from. You'd think that Instant Rewind would be the most important feature in the game, and at times it is. It'll save your perfect race that you just run 199 laps for before being spun out by that jackass Ricky Stenhouse Jr. The only issue is that Instant Rewind will really cost you. No, seriously. Instant Rewind requires 20,000 credits to work after using your 3 free go-arounds. Sure, turning back the time-space continuum just for you to retry probably requires a lot of effort and exertion, but what's God going to need 20,000 bucks for? To sum it all up, it would have been a lot better if you technics just dropped their telemetry crap and programmed their AI to drive the track perfectly. If just to bring a little more challenge. Some air physics would have been nice too, but if not, at least let the AI draft too. Instant Rewind was first introduced in the EA games, and I was afraid it would be gone in the Technics game. Thank goodness it wasn't. I give NASCAR Inside Line 2013 3 out of 10 for gameplay. Finally, on to graphics.
What's it look like?
Very pretty, actually.
What is there to say here? The cars look stunning, graphics are clear and crisp across all platforms, it doesn't strain your PC running at full potential. The skies aren't just revolving JPEGs, and the sun reflects off the cars and camera very well and isn't a nuisance. The drivers themselves look good, but don't really have much going for them. It would help if you could edit your character's looks like in the EA games, but it isn't too much of a problem. You'll be winning so often anyway, I'm sure you'll get used to it. I give NASCAR Inside Line 2013 8 out of 10 for graphics. Now, on to sound. This game does an excellent job capturing the sounds of the racing engines and the sounds of impact. I think they fit very well to the game, although the pitch of the engines are a little low. It isn't a problem. But NASCAR the game does do one thing in particular right that I think is better than every other NASCAR game I've played. The crew chief and spotters are spectacular in this game. If you've played the game 2011, you should know exactly how much your crew chief cared about the race. Instead of focusing on you and planning out your pit strategy, he's too busy looking into the grandstands to see what concession fans are getting. But that changes completely in this game. Your crew chief stays concentrated on the race at all times, motivating you and keeping you heads up on fuel and tire consumption. And the spotters are 100% perfect. They don't joke around like in 2011. In this game, they have their eye on you at every moment, and almost instantaneously inform you of driver locations around you, even more so on the PC version. You can honestly drive with a blindfold, and the spotter could drive the race for you through the headset. I'm going to be perfectly honest and give NASCAR the Game Inside Line 2013 10 out of 10 for sound. There's a whopping 12 songs in this game, all of which are from relatively unknown artists apart from Black Stone Cherry and Simple Plan, who are really just forgotten. You'd think a big dev like Activision can score the biggest hits of the year for the game. On second thought, I can take the alternative route on this one, literally, because pop stars wouldn't work in a NASCAR game. Most people who love NASCAR also love country music, which entered perfectly in EA's NASCAR 2007. Well, the alternative is fine in this game, and no matter how much I loved Thunder 2004 soundtrack and would rather have that, I just think country music would have worked a lot better. At least it allows you to have custom soundtracks. I give NASCAR the Game Inside Line 2013 6 out of 10 for soundtrack. Next up is menus. You may wonder why I choose to rate menus for the overall game. I just think that being able to navigate exactly where you want to get in the game needs to be fluent and simple, otherwise you end up fiddling around with these things much longer than you want to be. I didn't have too many problems with the menus in NASCAR the game, other than them being way too flashy. It's just a menu! It doesn't need to be the next Emmy award-winning motion picture. I'd have been fine with the traditional menus where you press one button to get to the mode you want, not all this animated stuff. Often I find myself tapping the left or right trying to get to the menus to scroll faster and faster, and no matter how much I do, it doesn't. Ray Everingham actually talks to you on the menus. When you highlight a selection for the first time, Ray will explain what it's all about. If you move off that selection, Ray will be cut off and you can never hear that clip again. Which is really annoying if you're just scrolling through trying to get where you want, and you may want to come back to that later. Also on the pause menu, you need to wait for the entire menu to go through its little animations before you can move the highlight. This means that if you're angrily trying to restart or exit a race, you'll find yourself backing out of that menu because a highlight hadn't moved. I give NASCAR the Game Inside Line 2013 8 out of 10 for menus. On to our last category, replayability. There really isn't much here for replayability, unless you're a really hardcore NASCAR fan looking to have some more fun, and if so, why aren't you playing any other racing game? There isn't much here for replayability for casual gamers either, There isn't much here for replayability for casual gamers looking to have a fun racing experience. And if so, why aren't you playing another racing game? To be perfectly honest, I find no reason to do a second season after your first, because odds are you won the first 5 races of the season and got every upgrade for your car right away. By the way, there's an achievement for that. The only real changes in the second season are that you get to enter the Daytona Shootout at the start of the season and your rookie stickers are removed. I give NASCAR the Game Inside Line 2013 2 out of 10 for replayability. And that's all my grading criteria out of the way. Time for the final score. Before that, let me mention a few things that I haven't yet. There's a replay race feature that actually isn't too bad of a replay feature. There's a camera mode like in the game 2011, but its controls are unbelievable. You'd have a better chance at buttering a piece of toast using nothing but your toenails and getting the perfect shot in this game within 20 minutes. There are a few race shop items that just appear in your race shop and do nothing but look pretty after purchasing. Some pro setups that make it even harder to race at Charlotte. Special paint jobs for your hot rod. And pins that you can use as your icon in online mode. Online mode isn't anything special either. It's about what you'd expect from a racing game, only boring and lame. Now for the final score. Keep in mind that this is my opinion and personal experiences that I have took from the game. Your game might be broken and wrong if you have any different experiences. After grading the game over my 6 categories, I have come up with a final score of 6 out of 10. While it may not be the greatest NASCAR game ever made, in fact it is very, very far from that, that doesn't mean you should pass it up. You could tell that you technics were trying and make a fun NASCAR game, but ultimately failed to bring an authentic game. With ridiculous AI, pit crew on perpetual coffee break, and concrete walls for opponents, it just wasn't going to happen with this one. But they did do one thing right, and that's fix the crew chief and spotter. They were spot on in this game, and I hope they do the same for the next installment. I once said that NASCAR The Game 2011 was the worst NASCAR game I've ever played. Now that I've dealt with Inside Line 2013, I can truly say that 2011 is still the worst NASCAR game that I've ever played. Inside Line was a step in the right direction, and I'm looking forward to the next. Thanks for watching, and have a good evening. This has been